A great day to be here to celebrate liberty, and a great day to try to regain our liberty. I think everyone here saw Joe Biden's speech 3 weeks ago. Remember, Joe Biden came into office claiming he wanted to be a uniter, to bring the country together. What did he say 3 weeks ago? He said, what more evidence, my word to the unvaccinated is this, what more evidence do you need? We have been patient long enough, but your refusal has cost us, and now it's time to take more action. Are those the words of a uniter? Or are those the words of a tyrant? And you know, for about over a year now, I think since last spring, I started using the word COVID tyranny. And as I used that word last April, I think, to some extent, I really thought I was using a little hyperbole. Because after all, I think back then we kind of thought we were all in it together. Maybe we saw things a little differently than the so-called public health experts like Fauci or Garza. But I think as time goes on, we've learned that we're not in it together, that there are COVID tyrants who are never, ever, ever going to let go of this kind of power until we tell them enough is enough. And I see a sign here that says COVID is over. Now, I'm sure I love the guy holding the sign. Facts, not fear, absolutely. But the fact is COVID isn't over. One of our biggest problems is this fantasy that if every man, woman, and child on this planet got vaccinated tomorrow, and we all wore our masks, and we all social distanced, and we were all good doobies and did what Lord Fauci told us to do, that COVID would be over. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have practiced medicine for over 25 years. I've studied medicine since I entered med school years and years ago. I won't say how many. And I think everyone here knows there's only one virus on the history of our planet that's ever been eradicated, and that's smallpox. The other viruses, many of which kill people each and every year, like influenza, like RSV, even like rhinovirus, and yes, other coronaviruses, we learn to live with them. Because, as Donald Trump said early on, we don't want the cure to be worse than the disease. And I heard the word natural immunity. And if you think that the COVID tyrants, these so-called public health experts that are telling us how to live our lives, if you have any smattering of credulity that you believe that they are following the science as they see it, think about the fact that they deny natural immunity. When I was a little boy, I had rubella, which we call German measles. I had mumps, and I had chickenpox. And in my whole life, not a single doctor, a single recommendation out of the CDC or the Missouri Department of Health has ever suggested to me that I be vaccinated for rubella or chickenpox or mumps. Why is that? Because at its best, a vaccine mimics the immunity generated by a natural infection. And a study using Israeli data, published in the CDC's own journal just a few weeks ago, suggested that those of you, and there are probably many of you, let's see a show of hands, who have had COVID and recovered, you have 6 to 13 times the immunity of someone who is vaccinated. Now, why isn't that good enough for the COVID tyrants? And yet some of you in this audience have have had COVID-19. It's documented, you've recovered. Maybe you even can document your antibodies. And yet you have employers who are ready to terminate you if you don't get the vaccine. Is that science? No. Or is that ideology and is that tyranny? Tyranny. So what do we do about it? Well, fortunately, we made a couple of small steps last session. We would have liked, as you know, Senator Eigel and I fought that fight along with our good friend Senator Koenig and many other good people, some of whom you'll hear from today. We had a very broad, very strong bill to do things like ban COVID passports, allow dads to see their kids and their wives after deliveries in the hospital, to say that parents shouldn't be forced to quarantine away from their own kids. We had a very broad bill. That was my Senate Bill 12 that came out of my Health and Pensions Committee. But the rhinos got together with the Democrats and they killed it. But we managed to regroup and we passed language in House Bill 271 which restored accountability to the tyrants like Sam Page a few blocks away from here that said that these health officials are accountable not to themselves alone or to the science, but to you, the people, through their elected representatives. So I think 271 was a big victory. We also, against all odds, managed to get through a limited ban on COVID vaccine passports to local governments, counties, cities, towns, and villages. Obviously, much more needs to get done. And that's why I have two asks for you for Governor Parson. Number one is, as it's been said, to call us into special session to ban COVID vaccination mandates, to ban vaccine passports, and to restore sensibility to our student quarantine policy. Because in my county of St. Charles alone, there have been 350,000 missed school days by healthy kids who were within 6 feet of a so-called case. Almost none of these kids ever tested positive. None of them essentially got sick at all. So we need a special session to end the COVID tyranny. And secondly, and no mask mandates either, right? Yeah, absolutely. And secondly, I'd like you all to call or email or write Governor Parson asking him to withdraw his nomination of COVID tyrant Ron Karroff as Secretary of Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services in Missouri. Just so you know who this Ron Karroff guy is, he came from J.B. Pritzker's People's Republic of Illinois. Heard enough already? And he retired, and now he's got his pension, and now he's double dipping over here in Missouri.
We moved because of Pritzker.
No, he's not licensed to practice medicine in Missouri because he's not a physician. He's something far greater. So my path to medical training, to my medical degree, 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency, 2 years of fellowship, and I continue my recertification every year, and I've practiced medicine for 25 years. But I am chopped liver compared to a master's in public health. Because whereas I could treat any of you for any disease within the scope of my license, I can prescribe any medication, unless, of course, Walgreens won't fill it. A master's in public health has way more power and way more authority. He or she could shut down a whole economy. He or she can tell you you need to wear a mask. He or she could tell you that your kids can't go to school, that your restaurant has to shut down, that your health club has to close. He or she can tell you what vaccination you have to put in your body. He or she can tell you your doctor can't prescribe hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or a Z-Pak or what have you. He or she can tell you that your chiropractor can't recommend you take zinc or vitamin D. This is absurd. This is absurd. So tell Governor, oh, and by the way, Ron Karroff says, House Bill 271, which I just talked about, it haunts him. It haunts him. I met with Ron Karroff a couple of weeks ago. He told me he still officially lives in Springfield. He's just hanging out in, I guess, in a hotel room in Jeff City. I would suggest that guy not sign a long-term lease. So thank you all for coming out here. Again, write or call the governor, write or call your state representative, your state senator. Tell them we need a special session to end COVID tyranny. Tell them we need a health director who knows what he or she is doing and not a public health Marxist ideologue. Thank you all for coming. God bless.